This is Marquette Rail, a Genesee and Wyoming shortline railroad that operates over 130 miles of leased trackage in western Michigan. The railroad was acquired in 2012 through the takeover of Rail America, yet another shortline holding company. Genesee and Wyoming owns 122 railroads worldwide. Most rail fans loathe the company's corporate orange, yellow, and black paint scheme because after taking over independent railroads like the Marquette, G&W removes the unique identity of each shortline by repainting newly acquired locomotives in the corporate scheme. Marquette Rail was founded in 2005 by Kevin Ruble, who along with other investors leased the line from Grand Rapids to Ludington and Manistee from CSX. The short line was operated as an independent, employee-owned company between 2005 and 2012 before being acquired by Rail America and subsequently Genesee and Wyoming. Today, G&W continues to operate Marquette Rail by fulfilling the lease agreement with CSX. The lease expires in 2025, so it's unknown if G&W will renew the lease in the future. Only time will tell, but for now, the orange is here to stay. On February 19, 2021, we visited Marquette Rail's northernmost trackage to document the Manistee yard job. Although a mild winter until the time of our visit, a lake-effect snowfall was beginning to coat the ground with about 6 inches of accumulation. Being located along the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, the small town of Manistee is no stranger to snow. The name Manistee is from an Ojibwe word first applied to the principal river of the county. It's interpreted by some scholars as meaning the spirit of the woods, and throughout the morning, the spirit of the woods was evident, as many swans, ducks, and Canadian geese were enjoying a bath in the Manistee River as the snow continued to fall from above. Talk about a winter wonderland. Just after 9 a.m., the yard job departed Martin Marietta Chemicals in Stronach, bound for Manistee. Stronach is a small community of about 800 people that's located on the east side of the 930-acre Manistee Lake. We waited for the train at the Insta-Launch Campground and Marina in Manistee, which provides for an excellent view of the Manistee River Bridge. In downtown Manistee, Marquette Rail crosses over a swing bridge that dates back to when the line was constructed in the 1880s. Painted silver, the bridge still displays the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway logo on both sides. In the warmer months, when the lakes aren't frozen over, a bridge operator controls the flow of boat traffic between Lake Michigan and Manistee Lake. The bridge is marked by a permanent 5-mile-an-hour slow order, so trains creep their way over the bridge when going to or from Manistee Yard. This sector of downtown Manistee includes the historic Manistee Iron Works building, which was built in 1907 after the original structure burned in a fire. The city of Manistee has a charred history with fire. The original city was destroyed in 1871 during the Great Michigan Fire, which swept the west side of the Lower Peninsula as the Great Chicago Fire simultaneously burned on the other side of Lake Michigan. It's believed that the same fierce winds fanned the flames in Michigan, which were either caused by lightning or a meteor shower. In the late 2000s, the Manistee Iron Works building was home to a motion picture production company called 10 West Studios. In 2009, 10 West produced the film What If?, a 2010 Christian-themed drama directed by Dallas Jenkins, starring Kevin Sorbo, John Ratzenberger, Christy Swanson, and Debbie Ryan. The movie was filmed at various Manistee locations, including the Iron Works and Our Savior's Lutheran Church. Throughout the morning, the snowfall would be relentless and posed a challenge for many drivers. Children in school were sent home early, and salt trucks were deployed to handle the icy road conditions. Marquette Rail's locomotive maintenance facility is located a few hundred feet to the north of Morton Salt. The yard job services Morton daily. Salt was first discovered in Manistee in 1880 and has been a source of great economic development for the small Lake Michigan town. As a result, Manistee was nicknamed the Salt City of the Inland Seas, and by the late 1890s was producing over 1 million barrels of salt each year. The town also became a popular destination for people suffering from various health ailments, including rheumatoid arthritis, as both the Manistee Salt and Mineral Bath Company and Mercy Hospital offered medicinal salt baths. Over the years, the salt mining industry would see many changes, but would stabilize during the Depression era under Morton Salt. The current Morton plant was opened in 1930 and is still one of the largest employers in town. These images, courtesy of the Chesapeake and Ohio Historical Society, show the Morton salt facility in the mid-1940s. At that time, the Manistee and Northeastern Railroad serviced the plant. The M&N, nicknamed the Mini, was a subsidiary of the pair Marquette and was one of the first railroads to extend north of Manistee in the late 1880s. The railroad's track continued on with branch lines to Traverse City and Grayling, tapping into Michigan's thriving lumber industry and interchanging with several narrow gauge lines along the way. We'd like to thank our friends at the CNOHS for sharing these beautiful images for this video. Morton's salt facility is located on Manistee Lake. While waiting for the train, we noticed about 20 fishermen who were taking full advantage of the frozen lake. Michigan's 11,000 inland lakes provide sportsmen with many opportunities to fish for popular species like bass, bluegill, salmon, and trout. After about an hour of switching at Morton, the yard job would head south for the Packaging Corporation of America's Filer City Containerboard Mill. Outside of the mill, trains are stopped so that the gate can be opened for entry. In this era of COVID-19, PCA was requiring all visitors to be temperature checked before entering the mill. Marquette employees weren't exempt and had to be swabbed before they could serve the mill. After being tested, Engineer McKay eased the train through the gate and into the mill. Stephen McKay and his conductor would spend about 30 minutes switching the mill, dropping off empties and picking up loads for interchange with CSX in Grand Rapids. The locomotives powering the train today are two EMD GP38-2s of Penn Central heritage. Both locomotives have a long history with several other railroads and leasing companies. The two Jeeps were originally Penn Central units built in the early 1970s. Conrail sold the non-turbocharged 4-axles to EMDX in the early 90s, who then sold them to Locomotive Leasing Partners in the late 90s. LPPX would lease a total of 61 units to Union Pacific. They were painted in Union Pacific Armor Yellow and were renumbered as road numbers 1910 through 1970. In the early 2000s, 53 of the 61 units were renumbered to Union Pacific's 400 series. In the late 2000s, the locomotives went back to LPPX, who sold them off to GMTX, who later sold the GP38-2s to Marquette Rail in 2014. After working the PCA mill, the crew would head back to Manistee Yard to swap out power. From a community park, one can document operations at the shortline's maintenance facility. Note the large snowplow, which is no longer in service. Manistee Yard is equipped with a sanding tower, a former Manistee and Northeastern repair shop, and a storage building for maintenance of way equipment. Since Locomotive 2040 was due for its mandatory 92-day inspection, the 2042 was pulled out of the shop and would be used by the yard job throughout the rest of the day. 2042 also has a nose logo that features the original Marquette Rail design. It's a welcomed sight by rail fans who reminisce about the short line prior to being taken over by Genesee and Wyoming. With 2042 now in the lead of the yard job, we jumped ahead of the train, setting up at the north end of Manistee Yard to watch the crew make a few switching maneuvers before departing town. Even though the weather was less than favorable for outdoor working conditions, the crew were in good spirits. In Michigan, this is just another day of operation in the winter. Don't you just love working in the snow?
It's better than the rain.
I agree with you there. As the crew made their way back into the yard to pick up their train, we set up along the channel near the swing bridge for a broad shot of the train. The yard job would head back to Martin Marietta Chemicals in Stronach, where they would then finish out the day by switching the customer in the afternoon. The slow order across the swing bridge allowed us to jump ahead of the train for a final shot from the curve at Veterans Oak Grove Drive. A small 3-track yard allows Marquette Rail additional storage capacity for inbound and outbound freight cars. With the crew of the yard job winding down their day in Manistee, we opted to go south in hopes of intercepting Marquette's turn job. Handling all of Marquette's Ludington and Manistee traffic, the turn job operates between Sparta and Baldwin, Michigan. At Newaygo, Michigan, we found the turn job making its way north over the Muskegon River Bridge. The current bridge was built in 1902 and spans 515 feet across the river below. The turn job is often powered by a trio of SD40-2s. On the point of today's northbound is locomotive number 3391, a former Canadian Pacific SD40-2 that was built in November of 1974 by GMD. It has served Marquette Rail since the company's inception in 2005. White Cloud, Michigan is at milepost 47. The town of 1,400 people is located at the center of Newaygo County and is a popular trail town. The 4,600-mile North Country Trail is nearby and is a large draw of tourism to the area. In the winter months, snowmobiling is a popular pastime for White Cloud residents and visitors alike. The town was at one time a junction point of two Marquette Railroad lines. The present-day route from Grand Rapids to Baldwin once crossed the now abandoned right-of-way of the Muskegon to Big Rapids line. Today, this long sweeping curve is all that remains of the once busy junction. Between White Cloud and Broman, Michigan, M37 parallels the railroad for several miles. We took full advantage of the road and were able to pace the train as it continued on to Baldwin through the snow. At the throttle of locomotive 3391 is none other than Bill Hayden. Hayden has been with the railroad since day one of operation, which started in November of 2005. Known for his unique sense of humor and signature mustache, Bill isn't afraid to make track speed on the turn job. Baldwin, Michigan is where the turn job drops off inbound cars for customers in Ludington and Manistee, while picking up outbounds for interchange with CSX in Grand Rapids. Baldwin was also home to two pair Marquette lines, with the east-west Saginaw to Ludington line crossing the north-south main line to Traverse City. The Saginaw to Ludington line was abandoned in the mid-80s. Remnants of the railroad's past remain today, with the original depot and a large coaling tower still standing. Marquette Rail's crews actually used the depot as a crew base. From 1921 until 1957, Baldwin was a stop for the Père Marquette and later C&O seasonal train, the Resort Special, which took Chicagoland vacationers to the Lower Peninsula's most scenic lakefront towns, including Traverse City, Petoskey, and Bayview. The Chesapeake and Ohio Historical Society provided this incredible Gene Huddleston photo of two C&O trains at the Baldwin Depot in October of 1960. The regular northbound train from Grand Rapids is on the platform in the background, working mail and express, while a special train to the right is seen boarding a local 4-H club for a Michigan State University football game at East Lansing. After dropping off the lead unit for servicing, the crew of the turn job would take their train into Baldwin Yard, passing the coaling tower as they made their way west of town. A very impatient snowmobiler decided to take a detour through the yard and over the tracks while the conductor was throwing the switch from the main line into the yard. With the daylight turning to darkness, Baldwin would be our last location of the day. The turn job would work into the night, departing Baldwin after dark for Sparta. On Monday morning, another crew will take the train the rest of the way from Sparta to Grand Rapids for interchange with CSX at Wyoming Yard. We hope you enjoyed our coverage of Marquette Rail's often neglected northern region. With so many railroads abandoned in this region of Michigan, it's great to see Marquette Rail serving their customers in Manistee and Ludington. Thank you for watching Delay in Block Productions. Until next time, happy railroading.